Hello, fellow druids. We're going to talk a little bit about a tournament I went to a few days ago at this point. From when I'm recording, I don't necessarily know when this is going to drop. Weird things going on up here, which I can never figure out. Whatever. Anyway, so I went up to Milwaukee. I believe the name of the game store is Games Universe in what is technically Franklin, Wisconsin, but I just say Milwaukee because that's the big city there. Kind of like how people think Schaumburg, Chicago, you know. Anyway, it was a standard steamroller, so I decided I'd go up there to get a little bit more practice. Took my 2 standard lists, so you can see them. They were my ATC pair. I've been playing them for a while now. There's nothing that should be really shocking. They'll likely continue to be my lists through Adepticon unless something really significant happens. So I took my Una 2 and Kruger 2 pairing. Like I said, same load as always. And they got, it was either 16 or 17 players, maybe 18. I think there was a bye one round, so it was an odd number. Or in round 1 at the very least. So I just want to walk through kind of what happened. Overall, great tournament. They run a pretty good show up there at the store. Always very inviting. They actually put food in as part of their cost, so it's $15 instead of the usual $10, and that works out pretty well. So they had a pretty good spread of players, and I'm just going to pull up my Iron Grudge to make sure I don't accidentally miss anything. Yeah, so in round 1, I played against a fella by the name of William. I don't think I had met him before. He was a Grimkin player. He had a Dreamer list and a Heretic list. Both were in Dark Menagerie, and they were both incredibly similar. It was like 3 Skin and Moans, a Cage Rager, some lights. I think the Dreamer version had the Dreadrots, the one I played, which was what I played into. Wait. Either way, heavies, light. It was very battle group centric. Gremlin swarms. He didn't have Carry On a Rose. Now I'm remembering, which seems like a mistake. So either he didn't field her by accident, or she wasn't in the list. But if you're building a beast list in Grimkin, you should play her. Just pro tip. So the scenario was, I'm gonna actually double check because I'm blanking a little bit. The scenario was the Pit 2. So this has a circular zone in the center, 2 rectangles on the side, and that's pretty much the scenario. He ended up going with Dreamer. I pretty much have been universally going with Una 2 into Grimkin, especially Beast Heavy Grimkin. She's been able to withstand their shooting lists and their infantry lists just fine. And against their heavies, I pretty much feel like that list has a significant edge. This matchup, the Tharn Bloodweaver Night Witch and the Tharn Ravager Shaman are 2 of the most important solos. And I may do another podcast actually talking about identifying how to approach what piece in your, like, what is the most valuable thing in your list, and some of that we may do a list / tactics discussion on that. I guess it'll be mostly tactics, but there's a little less building involved there too. So anyway, I decided to drop Una, and this game my opponent seemed to be kind of concerned a little bit too much with my threat ranges, and I think he was worried about losing a lot of pieces very quickly. I did sort of my what I'll call my standard deployment, where I put Wolf Riders on the flanks. Basically, I start with Hand of Fate on a unit and Mirage on the other unit, and then so Mirage was on the unit to my right, which is the rectangle that has my objective in it. I usually select healing as my objective, although in hindsight, I think in this matchup it would have been nice had I selected the magic attack one, because it would have given me another out against Gremlin Swarms. With Gremlin Swarms, also potentially Lanissa Rissel. She has Magic Sword and she has spells, so she can be critical there as well. And Una, but because of stealth, she's usually not getting that close. So, given this matchup, I made sure to position my Ravager Shaman so that I could walk in either direction to get Sigil of Power onto either unit of Wolf Riders if I needed to. But he kind of moved up. He doesn't have any speed buffs, so everything's sort of... Yeah, this one had Dreadrots, so everything's running 10, with the exception of the Gremlin Swarms. So he goes up, he runs up kind of as far as he can go, but it's not that far for a list like that. I run up and just make sure to stay completely out of any of his threat ranges because I basically out-threaten him everywhere on the table. It's like close with the Skin and Moans with Mirage, which is what he did put. He did put Mirage on a Skin and Moans, so it's very close there. But aside from that, I don't really have to worry about much there. He did do one thing on his turn that I haven't had any Dreamer players do, and I think more of them need to take advantage of this, which is he put Enfeeble on my unit of Wolf Riders on the left side. That was the unit that had Hand of Fate on it. But he didn't... but he really only contested with a single Gremlin Swarm that time, and because of how I positioned, I was going to be able to charge it with Tharn Bloodweaver Night Witch. She can boost. He throughout at some point in the turn he actually ends up using Ill Omens, so my attack and damage are blunted. It actually makes I'm having issues killing some of his. He puts the Dreadrots in the zone. So that on his top, he went first. On his top 2, he puts some Dreadrots in the zone. He puts a Gremlin Swarm in my rectangle. He enfeebles. He uses the Cage Rager to arc and enfeeble onto the Wolf Riders, and then he just kind of gingerly moves up. There's a Skin and Moans that goes in the zone. There's some Dreadrots that go into the zone. The Skin and Moans is so close that I can walk. There's like a building in the circle zone to the rightish, and I have a couple Griffins that are behind it. And he puts a Skin and Moans so close that I can walk over the building or fly, and without feeding and kill it and be able to keep it in sprint range. So. And the rest stayed out of the zones completely. So the way I'm looking at this is I'm going to commit to killing that Skin and Moans. I'm going to try to kill as many Dreadrots as I can, especially using Scarsfell Griffins because they can RFP them because they have snacking in the Devourer's Host team. And then I want to kill his objective. I want to kill his Gremlin Swarm. And he didn't commit anything to the zone on my right, and I think he realized that in the middle. So easily score a point there. I do kill the objective. I have to engage his Rattler to keep it from countercharging me, so I do that. Kill the Gremlin Swarm utilizing the Night Witch, and then I'm not able to clear the circle zone, but I do kill... it does take me more attacks than I want to kill his Skin and Moans there because of Elements and some poor dice. So I end up leaving 2 Griffins there, and they're easily within range of a Skin and Moans. But that puts me up 3-0 on the scenario with him having basically 0 chance of getting any points back. The next turn, he does kill those 2 Griffins with 1 Skin and Moans. He commits some stuff to the rectangle zone on the left. The Dreadrots... What did the Dreadrots do? The Dreadrots made some charges that were pretty ineffective. He used the Death Knell to kill Wolf Rider. He still didn't really commit a lot of stuff to the zone, but he did put a Gremlin Swarm in a spot that was on the other side of a building, the building I was just describing, and it was contesting the circle and the rectangle zone. And then he passed the turn. So I'm looking, and I basically have to clear the circle zone out, and that there's only a few Dreadrots in that zone. That's not going to be much of a problem. But I need to kill that Gremlin Swarm. So honestly, I was able to get Lanissa over there to kill it with a Frostbolt, but I had actually loaded up a Griffin with Sigil of Power, Primal, Hand of Fate, and had another Griffin ready to flank because that model was the only thing that was keeping me from winning. So I made sure to kill it. And that was the game. Just as a little bit of a review, this is true for Circle lists just as well as Grimkin lists. Is even though there's sometimes when you're facing an army that is designed to do that sort of heavy alpha attack, and which is what he was facing in this case, right? Like I have a faction that hits significantly hard that I need to be able to do work with. Honestly, he could have probably used All Fall Down at some point instead of Ill Omens. I'd have to look at the trigger on that, but I think I could have triggered it, and doing so would have likely made things pretty awkward for me, especially because it turns off flank. So I'd have to really look at that closer, but yeah, so that was something he probably could have done. But however, if you find yourself in a situation where your opponent is certain to get the alpha strike on you, but you're worried that you're going to lose too much, you actually have to, and I've made this mistake too, you have to make sure you commit pretty heavily to those zones, because in this case, or at least commit more significantly than he did. In this case, while if he had put all of his stuff in there, I may very well have been able to kill it between Enfeeble on one of my units, and a few other things. I think he could possibly have had an okay time if he had done that. I think I still probably end up ahead, but if he doesn't commit to it and I can pick off his stuff one at a time, he's definitely going to lose the game. So those alpha strike lists, even though they have a strong alpha strike, you usually don't want, like, anything that you can let piecemeal you out is usually going to be bad for you. So so that was round one. Round two, let me make sure I got my order here correctly. Round two, I get paired up against Travis Marg, and he's playing Crix today. Travis Marg, you may know as Dark Legacy, the Infernal Judge PG. He's only, I guess, an Infernal now. But he runs ATC, he runs Gen Con, he runs Adepticon, Lock and Load he's very heavily involved with. He's overall a good guy and moved the game quite a bit, so props to him for that. Anyways, we played quite a few times. I'm looking at his list. He's got Scar 1 list. He's basically, yeah, he's got the Scar 1 list. That's the Brandon Andrews War Machine Weekend list. Good list. He's got Denegra 2, which is the Aaron Whaley list from Champions in Australia that he won that event with. And I'm looking at it, and basically I don't like the lack of magic weapon. I know I have the Sigil of Power from the Shaman, but I don't really like that I can only get it on one thing at a time, and he's going to have, like the Scar list, I'm going to have to deal with a pair of Wraith Engines, possibly with +5 armor for a turn, and that's going to be a little rough for that list. He's going to have a decent amount of infantry in that list, which I think Una might be able to play that game. And then Denegra can give Incorporeal to 4 things, and if I can only get magic weapons, and Sigil of Power is only for turn, not round, so you can't get free strikes on him moving stuff past. And on the other side, the Kruger list has magic weapons everywhere. Like, literally everything, almost every attack in that army is magical. So, I select Kruger. He says he feels like Rebuke crushes the Scar list, so he had to go with the Denegra list. That ended up being fortuitous for him because we'll call this lesson, Chad's lesson that he hopefully can share with you. So I sort of went into autopilot mode on my first turn with Kruger, and I only advanced him, but I put up Stormwall thinking he has Iacos and he has Malice. I don't want them getting drags. This pretty much makes sure. He had put his one of his arc nodes and his some of his overseers pretty far forward on the right. So I'm looking at it. The Fulcrum can be teleported easily to a place where he can get shots on them. But I'm probably going to want to boost a couple times. So I have Kruger throw 2 focus into the Fulcrum and then move up, cast Windstorm, and sit on 2 Fury. And the Fulcrum does a little bit of work over there. Nothing to write home about. Honestly, putting that 2 over there was probably a mistake, as you'll see in a minute. Although you'll see there's a few mistakes, but I want to go over them. So he looks at he had run up basically everything of his had ran turn one. I had actually eyeballed it very briefly to see if he didn't go. It didn't really matter on my Sus Magic. I was gonna say he didn't use Wraith Walker, but it's mostly irrelevant. I looked briefly to see if I could kill him. I actually could have placed the Fulcrum in a way that it could get shots on her, and Kruger probably could have gotten shots on her. But he has to allocate to the Fulcrum probably to make that happen, and it's way too dicey, so I decide not to do it. Anyway, he starts looking at some stuff. He thinks maybe he can get Nightmare on me, but I'm camping 2. Nightmare's going to have to charge. He has to hit the Damnation spell to even get there, based on where I'm standing. And then he starts measuring, and he's like, you're within 15 inches of Denegra, which means, and we start very precisely measuring stuff out, because he's decided he is going to go for an assassination, and frankly, if it doesn't work, he's dead. So we might as well take the time. And so we measure it out pretty carefully. He is able to Shadow Step and charge Kruger. He needs a 9 to hit, and he has Puppet Master. And then he also needs to he feels he still might need to cast Damnation to make sure. And anyways, he's basically the moral of the story is he's actually able to pull that off. He places me minimum 4 inches, so I go behind Denegra. He gets Damnation on me, needing an 8, and then Death Jack's able to charge me. So lesson learned there is I should have thought more about and or reread Denegra's card to see what she could do. I have actually been thinking about it a lot, so I just sort of fell asleep here. This is another reason why sometimes it's the better caliber of player that and more games you can play are always going to be better. Sometimes I feel like there are some opponents that I play against where I probably am getting away with mistakes that I shouldn't, and this is a time where I was punished for that. A few things would have made this probably game heavily in my favor. Well, in my favor. I don't want to say heavily yet. In my favor, I probably could have just had Kruger back another inch and a half, and there's no way she gets to me. Or at least if she does, it's going to require Hellmouth to do it, because he could still get another 3 inches of movement out of the whole situation by using Hellmouth. But additionally, and he probably needs to place me farther if he does that. Additionally, I could have just saved that 2 Fury that I put on the Fulcrum and put it on, used it to cast Wild Growth, which is the Animus of the Wold Warden, and that has a clause that says I can't be placed, at which point this would have been moot. He wouldn't have been able to place me. Denegra would have been in the way. He doesn't even try it. And we go on about our day. So I just need to be a little bit more aware. I kind of went into autopilot there. Used to being able to put Kruger kind of very far forward in the army. And I just needed to think about the melee threat more and look at his positioning, look at what his threat actually was. And I didn't. This is the second time that I've kind of had that problem against a Krix army in recent memory, so I really need, that's something I'm planning to work on. But regardless, good call by Travis to make that. He gets the assassination, and I move on to round 3. In round 3, I get a Trollbloods player named David, who I've played against a few times. I think last time he played a different army. He's got Grim 1 and Cold Grima, I think? No. Yeah, I think he's got a Cold Grim on Beast Break. He decides he wants to play Grim, because he says basically because he hadn't. I went with Una 2, feeling like I felt pretty strong into the Beast Break with her, and I felt like I was going to be okay into Grim. This is on Recon 2. I basically go the same approach that I had in the first game I have in this game, so I spread out. Upkeeps go on the Wolf Riders. Moving forward, I went second again, so I lost the die roll thrice at this point to go first. He moves up quite a bit. He has this is a Northkin list actually, so he's got Raiders, he's got Valka, he's got Champs, no hero, but he has the solo which ends up being important. This actually ends up turning into quite a grind. I think I have the upper hand, but his dice actually start changing that significantly. He hits a 9 and an 11 on some Wolf Riders to get more kills there than he should have. A couple times in the game, retaliatory strikes from the champs actually just like totally took out Wolf Riders, which is rough on them because any of those type of attacks he can trigger on the impact attack and prevent me from getting the other attacks. So that was kind of rough. But basically, I'm not going to go into this one in too much detail, but I'm able to get my flag clear on the right and just sort of keep grinding into him throughout the game while not really being threatened, while being able to keep myself, there's a sorcerer setting, safe from Grim really killing anything too important. And I use the Wolf Riders on my left side to basically like do some work, but contest this flag. And the champs being slow, they do okay. Their dice were actually hot, like I said, but I'm able to kind of keep whittling them down between my Wolf Riders and some other stuff, and like keep them jammed out. So I'm able to keep scoring. Basically, I keep scoring on that side, and eventually I score on the other side too. But and I end up grinding out to scenario in there. No real lesson in that game. I think it played out how expected. Like I said, it's the one thing maybe to learn there is that not to let. My dice were not good that game either. At least it felt that way. And the lesson there is probably not to, and I didn't feel this here, but I have in the past, not to let a bad game of dice start dictating that maybe you've made poor list choices. So the list was fine. The approach was, I mean, it can always be better, but I think it was fine. And it's just there happened to be some crazy dice there. And then in round 4, I get paired up against Brian Culp, who I've played against several times when I've gone up to the Wisconsin state. For a while there, we were playing in the second round every time I went up there. He has, what did he have this time? He has Heretic in Dark Menagerie and King of Nothing in Bump. And I'm sort of looking at it, I didn't know what list he was going to play. I kind of decided I was going to stick with my standard approach of bringing Una. The Kruger list is better into Bump generally because the Hollow Men are pretty much irrelevant, and he has the damage, or he has the attacks and the control to just walk through infantry. But if he drops a Heretic, I'm not going to really love trying to play Kruger into that as much because of all the spells he can stop with the Cage Ragers. So I opt for Una. He drops King of Nothing. Particularly importantly relevant is there's a forest we're playing Breakdown. There's a forest right in the middle of the rectangle, and my battle group and my Ravagers all ignore it. And this time I finally win the roll to go first. This is my favorite scenario probably to play Una into. And so my Wolf Riders, again on the sides, he decides not to ambush the Murder Crows, which is probably fine. Praise my unit on the left. They're on the left. I'm on my left. And so the way this plays out is I take literally as much table space as I possibly can. Wolf Riders are towing the zones, staying out of shooting range of the Hollow Men for the first turn at least. He starts having to come forward. I start trying to do... Oh, he puts the clouds... This is smart. He puts the clouds in the forest because he knows basically that forest is irrelevant. And King of Nothing's on 0. And I very briefly consider the Mirage unit of Wolf Riders on the side all assaulting him because they all could. But he does have 2 shield guards, and it doesn't seem like I need to go for that, so I don't. I do start like walking up, making a few spear attacks here and there. But I make sure to keep my Ravager Shaman, White Mane, and Night Witch, very safe that turn, while getting a little bit of work done. And there's one in the zone on the left. I'm able to hide a Wolf Rider like completely behind a building and still in a zone. So I'm going to contest or score that zone for the whole game. He doesn't clear out the unit, but I do that, and I know I'm pretty safe there. So he moves up, and he knows he's going to have to get into the zones. See, I go first, so I go second. I kind of don't do a lot on the second turn. I don't. If he didn't put those clouds down, I would have probably eaten through all of his models that turn with my white mane, because he could have charged through the forest and just gone to town. As it is, I just keep them behind the forest, bide my time, kill a few models. He comes up, he kills a few of the Wolf Riders, die. I don't think he does anything else. He can't. He really. He takes some. That's not true. The Hollow Men takes some shots at some of the one or two of the Griffins. Pardon me. And then he. But he has to put stuff in the zone, so he starts putting his trooper models into the zones on either side and into the middle a little bit. He's got the Cage Rager coming that way. That's pretty much it. However, he's now had to get close enough to the zone with his units to do really anything that it means that my white mane can actually walk across the forest and start doing his thing. And the white mane is able to do that, and he walks through probably 20 models on his own, and the Night Witch in the other zone ends up killing another 10, including Lord Longfellow, and he's not coming back at that point. I've killed probably 2/3 of his army just with those couple solos and a little bit of activations from the Wolf Riders. And there was really nothing. As long as I could keep those models safe, I don't think there was really a whole lot he was going to be able to do about it, because if he doesn't bring those units forward, he can't really spread them out that far because of how many there are. If he doesn't bring them forward, then I win, and if he does bring them forward, I keep grinding through them, and then I probably win. So maybe that could have gone, there might have been some things he could have done to make that go that way. Me going first really set him on the back foot, because now I can dictate spacing, and even though he has the his guns sort of out threaten me, because he's 17 with the place and the 5-inch walk, 10-inch gun, but I assault farther, and I think with Mirage I walk and throw 18, so let's see, 9, 11, 7, yeah. So I just barely out threaten with one unit. It gets really weird if he goes first, but if I go first, it's pretty awkward for him. And yeah, I just grind through him in there. So anyways, that's the tournament. I don't actually place. My strength schedule wasn't great, but 3-1 is still solid. Like I said, I really wish I had given a better game into Travis, but he made the right call there. And that's how the tournament went. As always, if you enjoy the video, let me know. Feel free to post comments here in my Facebook group, on the Discord. The links are below. You can hit me up on Twitter as well. And obviously, if you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button, and yeah, we'll catch you for the next episode.